Good evening, and hope everyone is doing well. And I take it that you've had a fantastic week, and you are either home and you're preparing dinner, or you're with family and friends and you're making a day of it. Because as we know, we are approaching what they call Easter. And today, we're not going to talk about Easter, but we're going to talk about the unmoved mover. And we want to make you aware of some things, and we'll more than likely have iteration on some of the things that we talk about in this discussion, because that's something that we do. We want to, of course, remind you, and we know that some of us are pictorial people and others are those who can decipher and digest things just by listening. Some people need to see pictures. Others can listen and get the picture because it's spiritual. And that's something that we always say. So when you can listen, it's almost, and you can parallel this probably to reading, because when you read or you study, it is so necessary, because you take yourself places when you read, because you imagine. You have this innate ability to go places and experience things, as we talked about before. As far as not being in the mind when you don't need to be. And this is one of the virtues, one of the 10 virtues of Kemetic theology, is control of thought. And so we are taking it that you're doing just that you have control of thought, and that you're out of the mind where thoughts are not controlling you. Okay? And this is really about a whole transitioning. And we talked about, I think it was on last week, we talked about metamorphosis. Spiritual metamorphosis is when you're changing over. And let me say this as well. Something has to die when you are transitioning, when you are making changes, and that proverbial light bulb comes on, when you begin to see the world different. Because you're not seeing the world, and you're not seeing the universe from a base, low vibrational, third dimension, 3D, projection. But you're now, and you have reached fourth dimension, meaning that your third eye is open and you're coming into this new reality, if you want to call it that. And so, for those of you who are experiencing this, that is exactly what's going on. You'll begin to see things different, and don't be alarmed, because you'll start seeing things in your peripheral. Things will flash by you and you'll be like, okay, what was that? And it's not for you to be alarmed or to be scared, because you are making this spiritual metamorphosis, and you'll start to see things in another dimension. That's what happens. That's what happens when you divorce yourself from the carnal level, and you divorce yourself from the physical and the tangible material level, where 95% or 85%, and I would even actually go higher, of the world resides in. Because most people are dwelling and living in a base vibrational, low frequency, where everything to them is tangible and material. So they can't see anything else. Unfortunately, they can't see nothing else, because they're locked into that. They're locked into that mind, body, and spirit, and the whole nine. So their pineal gland is not active. It's because they haven't activated it. And they're struggling, and there's always consternation, and there's always friction and struggling going on in their ego mind and their mental. See, because they haven't, as of yet, been able to control their mental or their thoughts. They have not taken mastery over their thoughts. And so when that happens, then you're stuck in third dimensional vibrational frequency. Okay? And so until you unlock yourself out of third dimensional vibrational frequency, where everything is locked into the third dimension of materialism, touch, taste, hear, see, everything that you touch, and all that, you won't be able to make that spiritual transition from that cocoon that you need to come out of, like a butterfly. And so that's what's happening. So we're going to read some of this to you, and we're going to and like I said, if we run into, because we're not on anybody's time, but we're filling spaces. So if we happen to fill that space, then we'll come back and do another space. How's that sound? That's how we'll do that. So it's the men fight theology is an inscription on a stone, now kept in the British Museum, and we're going to be talking about this, and this is about the unmoved mover. And I had said something to you guys before about you, and you'll get it when I'm reading it, and I'll kind of emphasize that more when I come to it. But yeah, because I have mentioned it before as well. Okay, it contains the theological, cosmological, and physiological views of the Kemites, which, of course, the Greeks named the Egyptians. I'll say Kemites because that's us, our people, and I'll refer to it that way. It has already been referred to in my treatment of Plato's doctrines, but it must be repeated here to show its full importance as the basis of the entire field, understand, of Greek philosophy. Okay, so what I was talking about a moment ago, anytime you hear Plato or Socrates, Aristotle, all of these people quoted in regards to philosophy or medicine or astronomy or mathematics, understand one thing, and always remember this. They studied in Kemet. Some of them did not even finish. And as I mentioned in another podcast before, sometimes it's fashionable to say you went to a certain school or you went to a certain art school, or such as MIT or Yale, or because it gives you prestige. Okay, and because the Kemetic spiritual systems, from my understanding and research, it was a 20-year system. And it may have been longer, from 20 to maybe 40 years, some even say. So these quote-unquote so-called Greek scholars, a lot of them didn't even finish the Kemetic theology or the Kemetic systems, mystery systems, school and vocation, because they weren't equipped spiritually. Because what they did in terms of what they did learn and the amount of what they did learn, they turned Kemetic spiritual systems into humanism. In other words, what they did, they missed the whole boat, to put it plainly. They turned what they learned, or some of the stuff that they got in Kemet, into human form. And that's not where the Kemites were coming from. They weren't coming from a human element. And so even when I'm disseminating some of this to you and elucidating some of this to you now, understand that a lot of things are done in allegories and metaphysical or esoteric meanings, okay? And this is what we have to understand, because oftentimes a lot of people would think when you're talking about these different deities and these elements, okay, or these net-teru, or these netters, that you're talking about a human entity. And that's not correct. You're not talking about a human entity. You're talking about, as I just mentioned, things that represent nature, allegories, esoteric meanings, of the universe, and how the universe and principles and so forth and so on. Okay? So I want you to understand that. Okay? So we'll move on. So again, I'll read this again. It said, it has already been referred to in my treatment of Plato's doctrines, but it must be repeated here to show its full importance as the basis of the entire field of Greek philosophy. It is dated 700 BC and bears the name of an Chemedian pharaoh who stated that he had copied an inscription of his ancestors. This statement is verified by language and typical arrangement of the text, and therefore assigns the original date of the Memphite theology to a very earlier period of Kemetic history. And it says Egyptians, but like I said, I'm going to say Kemetic, because that's the proper usage, proper derivative, that's the proper name. The land of the blacks, the land of the dark people, okay? People of the sun. I.e., the time when the first dynasties had made their new capital at Memphis, the city of the god Ptah, i.e. between 4000 and 3500 BC. And you know what BC stands for, right? Before Christ, and so forth and so on. Intellectual adventure of man by Frederick, and it talks about, one of the authors and so forth. This consists of 3 supplementary parts, each of which will be treated separately, both as regards its teachings and the identity in Greek philosophy. Part 1 presents the gods of chaos. Part 2 presents the gods of order in arrangement and creation in part 3 presents the primate of the gods, or the God of gods, through whose logos creation was accomplished. In part 1, pre-creation or chaos is represented as follows. The primate of the God Ptah conceived in his heart everything that exists, and by his utterance created them all. He. So now, when I just mentioned, when we're giving you this, I don't want you to look at this, see, because this is much profound and much deeper than when you hear a name and you associate the name or the attributes with a human deity or a human person. You have to go beyond that. And so what I'm saying to you is that an example would be, if you were to, and I don't espouse to Christianity, a lot of you know that, but I'll sometimes use the Bible to make reference to different things. Okay, because again, as I've said many times before, Christianity is borrowed from Kemetic mystery systems. That's what Christianity comes out of. All religions, let me mind you, all religions on the planet, all religions are borrowed out of Kemetic mystery systems. Okay? Don't make no mistake about it. Don't get it twisted. It comes out of Kemetic theology. Okay? It's the first on the planet to have an organized, esoteric principles of depicting and describing in which there is a creator who governs, and how that creator works through all things, and principles and in universal laws. Okay, understand that. And a lot of what you're reading a lot of times is just that. Just like, for instance, a lot of you look at Jesus as a physical human being. But that's not what the scriptures is saying. And it got you worshiping him as a God. And that's not what you're supposed to do. And see, this is why we're so twisted up and confused, because we've taken something the way it's been given to us, and the deeper meaning has not been explained to you, because there's esoteric and there's more profound things when you're reading the scriptures, and a lot of them are coming to you in parables and different things, and there's a deeper spiritual meaning. And this is why I always say it's not religion, it's spirituality. Our people come from a spiritual place. Religion is only the practice of what they've taken out of spirituality and formulated, dogmas and sects and so forth and so on, to keep you, unfortunately, to keep you in the matrix, to keep you locked. See, because if they can keep you locked, because guess what? You're not exercising your higher self. You're still stuck in third dimension, low vibrational, baseless, or base, or the base. And it's not to insult you. It's not to be pejorative, but I'm just giving you facts and truth. And you have everything in you to become that God person or that God entity, but you refuse, and if you want to, you have to start honing in on your higher self, focusing on your pineal, your third eye. How do you do that? Well, there's a number of ways you can do that. Through controlled breathing, you have to focus on your center, and you don't do it by the mind. It's not being done by the mind, mind you, because what I said before, you're not the mind. You're not the mind, and you're not the body. You're just in your body, but you're a soul. You're a spirit. You're a soul. And it is your soul and your spirit, okay? So think about this. You have your body, you have your soul, you have your mind, you have your spirit. And all of those things are comprised within a solid carbon gases entity, which is you. Okay, so that's when we talk about the ether being and the non-ether and all those gases that are comprised of melanin and carbon and, hydrogen and oxygen and all these things. When we talk about breaking down atoms and so forth and so on, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. And because we're electric beings, we're magnetic fields that emanate energy in the universe. And we bounce off energy with the sun and everything that's in the elements that are in the universe to generate what we need for sustenance. Okay, so let's move on here, as I just read. And it said, part 1, it talks about pre-creation of chaos. It is represented as follows. The primate of the god Ptah conceived in his heart everything that exists, and by his utterance created them all. He. So that's in the all. We're all in the all. And as I said, don't look at it as in a human form. So it's first to emerge from the primal waters, of Nun, in the form of a primal hill, closely following the hill. The god Atum also emerged from the waters and sits upon Ptah, the hill. Now, these are metaphysical elements and energies, okay? They're not people, okay? So understand that. Understand that. When you're getting this, when I'm reading this to you, and it's giving you the pantheons of these entities and these deities, they're not per se, when you're hearing it being read, they're not people. So it wasn't like the man went and sat up on the hill. Okay, and let me read this again so you'll have some understanding. And then you can try to intuitionally take in the revelation of seeing these energies begin to formulate and begin to see these energies work with one another in conjunction in the universe. You follow me? So it's first to emerge from the primeval waters of Nun in the form of a primeval hill, like a mountain, right? Okay, closely following the hill, the god. Who is the god? Atum. Atum is what? So if we say an atom, splitting the atom, the Atum also emerges from the waters. The Atum emerges from the waters and sits upon Ptah, the hill. So you can liken this to an atom, okay, that burst upon the hill. There remain in the waters 4 pairs of male and female gods, the Ogdog, or unity of 8 gods, bearing the following names: Nun and Numnet, i.e. the primeval waters and the counter heaven. You get what I'm saying? Huh and Hohet, i.e. the boundless and its opposite. Kuk and Kokek, i.e. darkness and its opposite. And what is this opposite? Its opposite is light. And Amun, i.e. Aman, and Amunet, i.e. the hidden and its opposite. And that's talking about Ptah and so forth, okay? So, 1, Ptah has the following attributes. Listen. A, the primate of the gods, i.e. the God of gods, the logos, thought and creative utterance and power, the God of order and form, the divine artificer and potter who put you on the potter's wheel, fire and philosophy. Okay, so it must be noted that while the sun god, Atum, sits upon Ptah, the primeval waters or primeval hill, he accomplishes the work of creation. So you get what I was saying earlier? Do you? I hope you do. But the Memphite theology dates back to 4000 BC, when it is believed the Greeks were unknown. When it is believed the Greeks were unknown, period. So how can you create something if you had no presence in the universe? This arrangement in the Memphite theology could only mean that the ingredients of the primeval chaos contain 10 principles. And this is where we get the 10 principles from Kemetic, theology, such as, as I was mentioning earlier, control of mind, mastery of the mind, and so forth. 4 pairs of opposite principles together with 2 other gods, Ptah representing mind, as I've just mentioned, mind, thought, and creative utterance. These are the principles. While Atum joins himself to Ptah and acts as a demuge and executes the work of creation from such an arrangement in the cosmos, we are in position to infer the following philosophies. Listen. Water is the source of all things. That's why your body is 3/3 water. We are the universe, and the universe is us. We're all one. We're in the all. That's what the all is. To be in the all is to be in everything that it comprises, all the elements of the cosmos in the universe. And this is why we talked about in 9 ether, the 9, and how your hair grows like galaxies when you cut your hair down low, and your hair grows in that sacred geometry and that pattern of a galaxy, because you're a 9 ether being. Yes, water is the source of all things. Creation was accomplished by the unity of 2 creative principles, Ptah and Atum, i.e. the unity of mind, Nos, with the logos, creative utterance. Atum was the merge or intermediate god in creation. He was also sun god or fire god. And I say this so often, I don't want, people to be confused. See, because they start saying, oh, they worship so many gods, and oh man. No, they didn't. See, because when you start saying that, spiritually, I know you're not connected. See, because they use everything, as I say so much, I reiterate all the time. They use things in nature, abstract things. Okay, so this way, they give you a picture. Opposite principles control the life of the universe. Understand that. These are the principles. Because there's a duality in everything. There's a polarity. Understand that. All of these are energies that work in conjunction. The elements in creation were fire, atum, water, noon, earth, pata, or ta, jenin, and air. Part 1 of the Menphite theology is the correct source of these philosophies, but strangely, the Greeks have claimed them as their production, although without any right whatsoever. So, and this is what I want to get you to understand. So when you start hearing these people, and as I said before, given, and even though there were Africans who established Greece as well, eventually it became after time, a more influx of other people who, and even though you did still, at the time, even though you still had dark people there in Greece who was a part of the hierarchical system in Greece, just like I'm telling you now, they gave credit to people who didn't do anything, who were just children, who were students, and this is where history and the truth is so plagiarized that they don't want this truth to be disseminated. They don't want this truth to be known. Okay, so and that's the way it is. This is just the way the truth is, because I think it's too much for people to digest that the African had ruled the planet at one point, and he was the creation of all of these cultures, of all of these civilizations, and after which other people came in, and it makes sense to me, because you cannot create a culture that was already created when you came. You can't take credit for saying we created this culture. No, you didn't. That's just like Columbus saying he discovered America. Those kind of stories. It's just asinine and silly. You don't discover something that people are already there. What did you discover? You discovered that people were there when you got there. That's what you discovered. You saw some people. They already had cultures established, high societies established. So that's what it is. Okay, so here we are. Of these doctrines, water as the source of all things has been assigned to Thales, Zeller, and history and philosophy. You can find this in some of these writings. That of the boundless or unlimited has been assigned to Anaximander, Zeller, and History and Philosophy, page 40, while the air as the basis of life has been assigned to Anaximenes, Zeller, History, and you can find it. Furthermore, the doctrine that fire underlies the life of the universe has been assigned not only to Pythagoras, who spoke of the functions of the central and peripheral fires, but also to Herodotus, who spoke of the transmutation of fire into the other elements and their transmutation back into fire. Also, Democritus, and that's where you get the word democracy, who spoke of fire, atoms, as filling space as the mind or soul of the world. And Plato, who spoke of a world / soul, which is composed of fire atoms. And, they have the European, I guess you could say, scholars who have these in their books, and they'll give you the history of it and so forth. Zeller's History of Philosophy, page 53, 149. Plato's Famous and Alexander's History, and so forth and so on. Okay, so they're claiming all of these principles and doctrines of creation, and this is what we're talking about, meaning, and we're going to get to that, the unmoved mover. Okay, and we'll talk about that. That's real profound, and we're going to get to that. So, likewise, the doctrines of opposites has been assigned not only to Pythagoras, who spoke of the elements of the unit as odds and even, but also to Heraclitus, or Heraclitus, who spoke of the unity of warring opposites. Parmenides, who spoke of the distinction between being and not being. Socrates, who spoke of things as being generated from their opposites, and Plato, who spoke of ideas and noumena as a real and perfect, but phenomenon as unreal and imperfect. The Phaedrus of Plato, or Parmenides, okay, and it talks about 113 D. Okay, and it's Aristotle, Metaphysics, Plato, Phaedo, and it talks about the history of, where you can actually find that. Furthermore, the doctrines of nous, or mind, or an intelligent agency as responsible for creation, has been assigned not only to Anaxagoras, but also to Socrates, who spoke of the existence of useful things as the work of an intelligence, to Plato, who spoke of a world soul or mind as the cause of life and knowledge in the universe, and to Democritus, who attached a similar meaning. And it talks about, of course, Zeller's History, as I just mentioned a moment ago. The doctrine of the Logos has been assigned Heraclitus, who spoke of fire as the Logos, or creative principle in nature, while the doctrine of the Demiurge, or an intermediate God who created the world, has been assigned to Plato. The gods of order and arrangement in the cosmos are represented by 9 gods and 1 Godhead, called the Enid, or the Enid. Here, Atum, or Atom, the source of the Ogdog, is also retained as the source of the gods of order and arrangement. Atum, Atom names 4 periods of parts of his own body, and thus creates 8 gods, who together with himself become 9. These 8 gods are the created gods, the first creatures of this world, and Atum, the creator God, and the Demiurge, of whom Plato spoke. The gods whom Atum projected from his body were Shu, which is air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb is earth, and Nut is sky. And we're going to pause, and we're going to come right back. So you guys stay with us. And as I just mentioned, when you hear this, just intake energies and know that these are energies that are working, because, of course, the way the Greeks looked at it, they looked at it as human deities, which they were not. They were energies and principles You know what I mean? So stay right where you are, and we'll be right back in a moment. And we are here again with you. This is Sep coming to you again on this Saturday evening, approximately 7:56 p.m. And it is a cool, breezy 53 degrees, Fahrenheit, cloudy evening outside. And hopefully where you are, it's comfortable and it's where you can enjoy yourself. So listening in your hearing again, as we always say that we're listening to uncopyrighted music, Scott Buckley is what you're hearing. And we're coming back again with you for you guys to have this information and to process it and to use it for your spiritual growth and ascension. So we was just talking about these spiritual elements. And one of the things I want to mention again, too, is when I said that these elements and entities or principles and spiritual energies are not people per se, I don't want you to get confused that there weren't people in Kemet. Okay, don't, and I know we're smarter than that I'm not saying that there weren't people in Kemet, that there weren't pharaohs and there weren't high societies of people, because obviously they were. What I want you to understand and understand, and I emphasize it more and more, is that what they were actually saying about and how the universe and the cosmos was formed, and how they looked at all the energies in the universe, such as air, the wind, the sun, the water, that these were not per se gods they were worshiping. They understood and understood how the process of the cosmos worked, and they used it for its greater good and internalized it spiritually. Okay? So I want us to be clear on that. And this is our way of living. This is our ancestors, because why would, think about this, why would a great creator put you in a situation where you have anxiety about if you don't do what he says, you're going to a burning hell? Come on, y'all. Really? How could you have peace even living like that? How could you go around with anxiety of a creator that says he loves you, but then you on edge about if you don't do what he says? It's like a damn taskmaster with a whip telling you, if you don't live right, I'm going to put you in hell, and you ain't nothing but a filthy rag. And when you look in yourself, how do you process that when you look in the mirror? That don't give you low self-esteem? It just goes to show you that the opposite has been given to you other than what you really are. You're a filthy rag. You ain't no good. You was born in sin. You was so messed up from a baby. That's crazy bull malarkey, that you was born in sin as a child, as a newborn entity in the universe, that you was born with sin all over you and you needed somebody to save you. Come on, y'all. Really? Come on. And then, at the same time, I'm telling you how much I love you. Wake up, man. I'm telling you how much I love you, but you a filthy rag. You ain't no good. You need somebody to save you. But what Kemetic theology does, it teaches you to go within and raise your higher vibrational frequency of the creator God that's in you to become on a higher pedestal of spirituality. This is what the metaphoric elements, even in your scriptures, was teaching you, but you missed it. You missed it. You missed the whole lesson because it's not given to you the way it's been given to you today for you to worship nobody. You have idols. You should have no idols. You have an idol. You're worshiping an idol. Hello, somebody. You're worshiping an idol. I know it's hard to break from that because I've been in it. I know. And you have to at some point it comes with having an open heart. I mean, and just examining and looking at things. And when you say, why would a God tell me I ain't no good and I need him to save me and I was born in sin and I'm a filthy rag and and without him, I'm not going to go to heaven. So I'm going to hold this over your head. And if you don't do what I say, I'm going to put you in hell. Really, man? When I'm going to tell you something. When I was doing extensive amount of studying, when I was in Christianity, I began to know something was not right. I began to search. I began to really, really, really search. And, when, if I sin, I got to come back and repent. And I got to repent over and over and over. That's bull crap, man. That's control. That's mind control. I go out and sin and you got this weight hanging over your head. And I used to have that weight. I used to feel it. I used to actually feel when I would pray, this ceiling that would block. I knew it wasn't right. I said, something is not right about this. And then a lot of y'all will say, well, you'll dispute it. You'll try to dispute it. You're trying to find justification as to why it's right. It's a form of bondage. You can't be free and bound at the same time. Okay? You can't. Think about it. It don't make sense. It don't make sense. And a lot of us, we're posturing ourselves to go to this church tomorrow for this Easter, for this pagan holiday, and you're talking about Jesus rose on the third day. How you going to get 3 days out of, come on, y'all, Good Friday to Sunday? How you get 3 days out of that? Tell me. Really? It shows you how man has manipulated time, how man has manipulated us into believing a lie. Okay, so we're going to move on. Who are said to have given birth to 4 other gods. Osiris, the god of omnipotence and omniscience. Isis, wife of Osiris, female principal. Seth, S-E-T-H. It ain't S-E-P-H. So don't get it twisted. As I said before, the opposite of good. And what's this? Nephilis. Okay, female principal in the unseen world. And this is what I'm trying to convey to you, that these are principles, spiritual laws and principles. Plutarch, and he talks about, where you could find it, and actually do some research. In Ancient Man, page 66, Intellectual Adventure of the Ancient Man. You can find that, you can look that up, and go from there. As we read the text of part 2, we find that the sun god Atum, who was present in the chaos, was also present at the development of orderly arrangement in the cosmos. And this is what I want you to understand. You hear what I just read. That he was present in the cosmos was also present at the development of orderly arrangement in the cosmos. These energies and spiritual elements and principles that were arranging the cosmos. At this stage, Atum assumes the role of creator of all gods except Ptah, the god of gods. He next proceeds to accomplish this special type of creation in the following manner. He commands 8 gods or 8 elements or 8 energies or 8 spiritual principles to proceed from his own body according to the names of those 8 parts. They're not people. You understand what I'm saying? These are spiritual principles. These are spiritual laws. These are spiritual energies emanating through the cosmos to arrange, as you just heard me say, to arrange the functionality of the universe and the cosmos. The result of this creation presents us with what has been called the Ened, or the unity of 9 gods in one Godhead. The doctrine of the deluge, as in part 1, the doctrine of the created gods, and the doctrine of the unmoved mover, as we're talking about. These principles, these spiritual elements, these energies, these spiritual universal laws that are formulating the cosmos. Okay? You with me? We want you to understand that so that there's no confusion. So that there's no confusion. We want you to get this. We want you to get it. Because, you know, a lot of us won't get it, and we'll be saying something else. Okay? As I just read, the unmoved mover. Certainly, the world has never been more misled. Okay? Here, it must be made quite clear that the doctrine of the deluge in creation includes 2 other doctrines, that of the created gods, and that of the unmoved mover. It was the function of the deluge or someone said the demiurge, okay, to create the universe. And in doing so, his first act was the creation of the gods, who accordingly became the first creatures. Okay, so again, I'm reiterating, emphasizing this again. The way the Greeks looked at this, they took the spiritual mystery systems and the little teaching that they got, and what they did was to formulate Kemetic theology and principles and laws and energies into a human form. So that's why a lot of us, even to this day, look at things in human form and we miss we miss the spiritual aspects and revelation of what it's actually giving us. Okay, and this is exactly what has happened with the Bible, because you look at Jesus as a human being rather than getting the spiritual understanding of what the Son is. The Son is not per se a human son. The Son is an element. Okay? The Son is a deity. It's an element in the universe that brings life. So when you've taken on the life of the Son as a human form rather than taking on the life of the Son to raise your higher consciousness to come out of 3D low vibrational frequency, you miss it. Because you basically what you do is bring it down to a human level. And that's where you miss it. You bring it down to a human level rather than a spiritual one. You bring it down to a religious level rather than a spiritual one, and you miss the whole boat. Because now you've taken something that's spiritual and you humanized it. You humanized it. Rather than getting the real exoteric or the metaphysics out of it, or the magnetic connection spiritually to the cosmos and to the universe. You bring it down to a human form, and then you start worshiping it. So now, what have you created? You created an idol, number one. You created an idol. And then number two, you've blocked your pineal gland mentally because you can't think beyond a human form. And then you put yourself in bondage to a human element, okay? And you became a slave within your own higher self, which you've blocked anything from, oh my goodness. I think you know what I mean. But let us move on. However, the history of Greek philosophy has assigned the authorship of the doctrines of the Demiurge and the created gods to Plato, and the authorship of the doctrine of the unmoved mover to Aristotle. But this so-called Platonic doctrine is one made up of three inseparable parts. A, the Demiurge; B, the function of the Demiurge; and C, the method of the function, a unity which contradicts Aristotle's authorship of what is really only an inference from the supposed original doctrine of Plato. The myth of creation in Plato's Timaeus, and it talks about, again, where you can find it in history, and find that where you can find it in historical writings and so forth. Okay, and so so let's do this. Okay, so you got that. So it talks about here, the doctrine of opposites has already been discussed. However, in part one of the Memphite theology, one of the pairs of created gods, Osiris and Isis, was used to represent the male and female principles of nature. Now, what did I just say? It was to represent the male and female principles, y'all, not people. Okay? And I want you to get this. The male and female principles of nature. In addition to this, Osiris had other qualities attached to him. To who's him? The male principle, the male energy, not a human entity. Okay, which might be understood from the following derivatives: os, meaning many, and iri, meaning to do, and also, meaning an I. Consequently, Osiris came to mean not only many-eyed or omniscient, but also omnipotent or all-powerful. Here again, as in all instances already mentioned, in spite of the fact that the Memphite theology is the source of Greek philosophy, yet the doctrines of an intelligent cause, a nous, as responsible for the life and conduct of the world, has been assigned to Anaxagoras. And it's basically telling you where they got it from, and how they was able to extrapolate and obtain, these teachings. Socrates and also Plato, whose world's soul consisted of fire atoms, like the world soul of Democritus. Plato and talks about again where you can find it. In the third part of the Memphite theology, the primate of the gods is represented as Ptah, thought, logos, and creative power, which are exercised over all creatures. He transmits power and spirit to all gods or energies or principles, and controls the lives of all things, animals and men, through his thought and commands. In other words, it is him that all things live, move, and have their internal being. So you know how y'all say in the church, where you, I've heard that many times, where people are testifying, they'll say, how do they say it? I move and have my being, and so forth. This comes out of Kemetic theology. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, Memphite theology is the source of modern scientific knowledge. It is the innate and the nebula hypothesis. The identity between the sun god Atum and the atom of science. Like splitting an atom. You've heard that before. The atom is energies, right? You get energies out of an atom. Molecules, so forth, so on. Just as the Memphite theology is the source of Greek philosophy or primitive science, so it is also the basis of modern scientific belief. The gods of order and arrangement in the cosmos are represented by let's see where I stopped here. They are represented by nine gods in the Godhead called the Enid, or the Atum, the sun god, i.e. fire god, creates 8 other gods by naming 4 pairs of parts of his own body from which they came forth. Here, the names of the created gods were given as Shu and Tefnut, air and moisture, Geb and Nut, earth and sky, and 2 other pairs of opposites, Osiris and Isis, and Seth and Nephangs, or Nephet, who are supposed to be the first creatures of this world. Okay, so again, we're talking about energies. We're talking about principles. We're talking about spiritual laws. We're not talking about people, okay? When they're describing these energies that form the cosmos and the universe and so forth. This is what we're supposed to live by. We're living by spiritual laws and principles, and this is what I'm trying to get over to you, okay? That it's not about you worshiping an idol, getting to your higher self by following the laws, principles of the cosmos and the universe, and being the God within yourself, raising your vibrational frequency to that fourth dimension, becoming what it was told to you become, but you missed it. As I said, you missed it. Okay, and I know some of you are probably saying, who does God think he is? Telling me I missed it. I just told you. I just told you. You can like it or lump it, you know? Because we are the baddest. See, a lot of us are still in our ego mind, because it's not even about the message so much as much it is you getting the principles and the laws of this universe to ascend to your higher self. I'm telling you, y'all. For real. You know, and if you're disputing within yourself, it's already telling you that, yeah. What's that telling you? If you're disputing within yourself, if you have consternation right now as you hear me speak, what's that tell you? I know what it would tell me. I need to come out of that low vibrational frequency. I need to come out of that 3D, third dimension, material. And when I say material, I'm not talking about cars and houses. Material means a wall, a brick building, or anything in this universe that's blocking your pineal gland from opening up your third eye for you to see beyond this matrix. That's what I'm talking about. Of the created gods were giving as Shu, Tefnu, air, and moisture, as I just read, Geb, Nut, earth and sky, and two other pairs of opposites, Osiris and Isis, Seth and Nephthys, who are supposed to be the first creatures of this world. Now, if we compare this Kemetic, and it says Egyptian, but I told you what I was going to say, cosmology with the nebula hypothesis of Laplace, which would find very striking similarities in the two contexts. According to the nebula hypothesis, our present solar system was once a molten gaseous nebula. And remember, as I said, that we're gas, carbon, oxygen, magnetic entities. Okay, anyways, this nebula rotated at an enormous speed, and as the mass cooled down, it also contracted and developed greater speed. The result was a bulging at the equator and a gradual breaking off of gaseous rings, which formed themselves into planets. These planets in turn threw off gaseous rings, which formed themselves into smaller bodies, until at last the sun was left as the remnant of the original parent nebula. From this context, it is clear that The original parent nebula was fire or the sun, and that by throwing off parts of itself, it created some planets which in turn threw off parts of themselves and created others according to the context of the Memphite theology. The creator God was the sun god or fire god Atum, who named four pairs of parts of his own body from which gods came forth. That's profound. That's profound. That's our people. That's the entities, the spiritual principles and laws of the universe. That is profound. And I'm going to read this, and we're going to stop for this evening, and we'll be coming back again. But Atum, together with the 8 created gods, compose the Enid, or Godhead of 9, a very striking similarity with modern science, which teaches that there are 9 major planets. Remember that word 9? We talked about 9, right? 9 ether. We may now summarize these similarities. The creator God in both they say Egyptians are saying Kemetic and modern cosmologies is the sun or fire, the creator of the 9 major planets. These similarities make it evident that Lapis obtained his hypothesis from the Memphite theology or other Kemetic sources. And we're going to stop there. We are going to stop there. So, again, this is Seth Moore coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. Remember to visit us. And you know where to find us. You can find us on Patreon, Amazon, Apple, Podbean, Buzzsprout, and many, many more host sites. As we will prepare to give you more of this when we come back the next time, we ask that you would continue to like, share, and support us. And we're so grateful for any likes or shares that you give us. And as always, we'll be seeing you guys next time. We hope that you have a great day on tomorrow and a great evening. So until next time, again, this is Seth Moore coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Until then, we bid you peace, high vibrations, and good vibes.